Okay, what's going on, guys? We're back with another one, Canadian Beef Podcast. We're here with Dana Baker today, the big Baker boy, and Paul, of course. We always got Paul. So what's going on, guys?
Like I'm the third wheel, and Paul, of course. He's here just to be here.
Just another day, man. Living it up.
Sweet. You guys trained today?
I did. I trained actually early this morning.
Okay.
How early is early, Dana?
So one of my close friends, she's a bikini pro, and I
don't know where this is going. Yeah.
No.
No, I'm joking.
So it's like kind of around here. It's been like, where you're at, Robin, and stuff. Like it's a community there is so close knit that like it's a very great atmosphere to be around. And I kind of just told her, I was like, I'll just come when you're training tomorrow because I'm off work and just kind of help her with her training a bit. But I ended up training too. I did arms and it was like 5 a.m.
Yeah.
Whoa, yeah, shit. Yeah, that's early.
That is early.
Surprisingly enough, it actually was really well. Like, because usually I don't train fasted and I don't think it's optimal for like, not necessarily muscle growth, but just for my head. And like how I feel, I feel better if I'm like, even if I have a meal or 2 meals in, like to go fasted right out of bed, like, especially if you're doing like deadlifts, like I don't want to go pull 500 pounds out of bed, like, or something like that. That's just not, but that's more mental, but going and training arms. Yeah. I did it this morning early and yeah, it's nice.
It's good for those little body groups. You just slam some pre-workout and cream of rice and 2 eggs raw. That's what I do. 2 eggs and a cream of rice and then get to the gym.
Did you say the eggs are raw? You do raw?
I do it. Yeah, I put it in my cream of rice. I put it in the microwave for a little bit with the cream of rice. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, you know what? Salmonella. Well, who cares, eh? Doesn't matter. It doesn't matter.
It doesn't matter to Paul.
Whatever, right?
It doesn't matter to me.
It's not COVID.
Yeah.
It's like COVID. You only need to cook it a little bit though. It's like you don't need to cook the egg fully, right?
But why? I mean, why don't you just make it like a scrambled egg or like a nice like over easy sunny side up?
I enjoy my little concoction. It's like John Meadows has one too, John Meadows.
I mean, that's good. I mean, if you enjoy it, I was gonna say like I guess everybody's got their way to make their breakfast, right?
So you put the egg in the cream of rice and stir it up and cook the cream of rice with the egg in it?
Dude, I will make anything with cream of rice. Like I saw Rasha Bar do.
What I'm saying is you put the egg in the cream of rice and then that's how you cook. Oh, okay. So
I've done that. Yeah. I've done that with
okay.
Super good.
I thought you were just like cooking the cream of rice and then cracking an egg in it and stirring it in. I thought that's what he said originally.
No. You put it back in the microwave. You stir it, or if you're doing it on the pot, that's the best because you stir it and it cooks the egg a little bit.
I see where you're going.
You get like this thick, and then you put protein powder in it. So you get
it volumizes it. It volumizes it, right? Like the egg makes it thicker.
It's an emulsifier or whatever, right? That was the same thing with like cooking stuff.
Yeah.
It's like, and then you put some xanthan gum in.
Yeah. That sounds like a Greg concoction now. That's a Greg.
That's when you're starving on contest prep and you're just like, I'll do anything for more volume.
Yeah, that's it. Yeah, for sure. Then you put your fibers in and shit.
Yep.
Next day, your stomach is 5 sizes too big.
Yeah. So what's your diet like right now, Dana? Because you usually train in the evening or usually train in the afternoon or?
So I have a very complex life right now when it comes to bodybuilding. In a different way because my job that I have is like, it's not physical labor, but it's really high activity. But it is physical labor. So
what are you doing right now?
So for the last almost 5 years, I've been a train conductor of CN.
Okay,
cool.
And I'm also trained. I'm also like, well, I'm not qualified to go on my own, but I've done all the training and stuff for the locomotive engineer training. So yeah, that's what I've been doing for the last 5 years. So after nationals, I kind of hired on there. It was just like it's a sweet job. But it like a majority of why, like I've focused a lot of time on that career in a sense that I took away some of my bodybuilding focus. And like long run, I think it's probably been the best thing for me, man, because like, you know, some of the guys that we've been competing with, I mean, you even had a couple of years you took off, right?
Mm-hmm.
You know, and it's like competing like we had for so long, mentally, it's a whole different ball game compared to some of the guys who, you know, they're 2 or 3 years in and it's like, you know, they're boom, 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 you know, and it's like, for me, it just saved my health a lot, I think, mentally, and just like, you know, not blasting for shows and stuff like that. But yeah, it's still like, now that I've been good at it, but then I moved here to Moncton. So I did 4 years in Halifax. So it's just territory, like understanding where you're at. So now that I moved up here, I'm like learning everything all over again. So
okay,
it's been a little bit more challenging because I just don't know where I'm at, like all the new areas, like all the new places. So, you know, you're as good as a rookie, you know, somebody who's just starting, because you just don't know where you're at. So yeah, it's a lot of walking. It's a lot, like we throw the switches, we do the handbrakes, we like ride on the side of rail cars, switch all the cars out, but it's mostly walking. But it does have an element of, you know, it takes a lot of calories out of my day.
Mm-hmm.
But that being said, it's just, you just have to be smarter with the way you approach everything. So, you know, I know when I can like for me, I usually keep my legs to my days off. Like I won't train legs until I'm on my weekend or, you know, something like that. I just kind of go how I feel. And yeah, it depends. Like the job I'm working now it's 4 to 12. So I'll work till midnight and then I'll get home and I'll be in bed by at least 1 a.m. And then I'm up at 8. I'll have a meal and then I'll have like my second meal and then I'll go train. And then I'll have another meal before I work. And then I keep the rest of my food for when I'm at work. And then, so yeah, I just have it laid out like that. But it's also taken time. Like, for example, if somebody like you just started doing my job tomorrow, you'd be fucked.
For sure.
Right.
Yeah.
So like, I've like adapted, like, I understand how, you know, what's required of me, you know, I'm like experienced enough now that it's just kind of like normal for me now. So now I can still go train. Like I'm kind of finding now I've finally been able to like train like I used to be at my best training now and still be able to work. And that's like great for me. However, I'm just, me and Patrick started back here in September, working on an off-season plan. So it was just a baseline. Honestly, it's great. It's good for me because I respond really well to, like, you know, if my food doesn't significantly change, but I'm consistently eating a good amount, like say 4,000, 4,500, I can progress really far without really needing to throw too much food. And that was always the issue, is that I'd overeat and get way too fat in my off season.
Yeah.
And then it's like, you just spend too much time in contest prep trying to get it off. So yeah, I've put on about, I think 10 pounds now the past month. It's just pretty consistent. So, it's like my morning meal is oatmeal, blueberries, 1 whole egg and some egg whites. And then I've got a couple meals of chicken and fish with just rice. And Patrick, I mean, you've worked with him. It's a lot of dry. It's all dry measure, raw measure.
You're with Patrick Tor?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. I've been working with him for, you know, since 2019.
Oh yeah, that's right. He told us.
A lot of people, like, this is the funny thing about it is, you know, and Robin knows this too. It's like, I've worked with so many different coaches, and it's like every time I've worked with a coach, everybody's always asking, like, how is it and stuff. And I'm like, well, this is how it's going for me, you know, but for a lot of people, it's not their experience. And it's been like that for me with every coach too. So, I mean, me and Patrick have great communication. It's worked. It's like his approach works really well with me, especially with my situation. So yeah, it's been really good, man. Simple. And, you know, yeah, I just we have a good little thing going on. And I'm at the point now too, like my last coach I had was my friend Justin, and that was really good for period of time. And then before that was Matt Jansen.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
How many coaches would you say you've had in total? You don't even have to name anybody, but just like as an estimate. Because I know I've had a lot. I probably had.
I would say like 9, 10.
Yeah, I was gonna say I had like 10 in
Wow.
total. 10 over about 12 years.
Two to three of those coaches would have made up the majority of it. Now, like in terms of the number of coaches I've had, like the one that has had the most impact on me would definitely have been Matt Jansen. Like when we did 5 shows together. So it just worked out that we had like so much time together in terms of shows that, you know, it was I think 2 years that we worked together. But yeah, I learned a lot there, and Patrick's been really good. We've been learning a lot about me again too. And yeah.
I like his sarcoplasmic hypertrophy approach. He studied that. I had a podcast with Patrick and talked to him at length about his sarcoplasmic hypertrophy. I guess he was trying to put out some research on that. Do you guys know what I'm talking about?
Yep.
I don't know if he spoke to it to you guys a lot, but basically the way he makes you eat and the way he makes you train. So it's just the food really hammers the training, or the training really hammers the food that he's delivering. I'm not sure if that's the case, but that's the way he makes it seem to be. So like when you are training, you're making the use of that, and that's when your muscle actually grows. And then you feed it more glycogen and carbohydrates. And there's like a synergetic effect between the glycogen filling the muscle and the expansion, kind of like an SEO. From my understanding, my basic understanding, it's like the fluids are almost like an SEO to your muscle, where they expand because you're training so hard and you're eating so much around the training. But I could be wrong.
Well, I mean, you just like, you got to think about it like, obviously, exactly what you said. Like what I've noticed with Patrick, and I mean, there's so many different ways to skin a cat. We all understand that, you know, if you're eating, and this is some of the stuff that's coming out that's a little bit more accurate, because all the information regarding nutrition is applicable to whoever you are, right? It doesn't. True. So like a lot of the bodybuilding, like, you know, specific stuff, you know, you're talking about people that are enhanced and that are living in a very, it's not a normal environment. It's not something that nutritionally, I think there's a little bit more of an engineering towards like beneficial ways of dieting, et cetera. But it also comes down to genetics too. Cause like, you know, the whole keto thing, like there's no way that I would be able to keep the amount of muscle tissue and train strength wise to maintain the type of muscle tissue that I'd need to compete against other pros. If I did like a high fat, high protein, no carbohydrates, it just wouldn't, my job, I would be like basically fucked. But there's some guys that respond really, really, really well to high fats. And then like with Patrick, his approach has mostly been, you know, like it's carbohydrate and protein specific. Like basically the off season is like your fats are coming up, your proteins actually less protein than I found like doing an off season. It's more carbohydrate like focused. And then as shows come, fats come down, the carbohydrates come down, but then there's always like, instead of totally bottoming out on the carbs, it's like low fat. And that has always worked better for me. You know, what's funny though, I found out something about my genes. I'm missing this lipoprotein transporter. Like I have a genetic variant for whatever this protein lipotransporter. So I don't actually have the normal amount of lipoproteins to transport fat into the mitochondria for burning.
Watch your cholesterol, man.
So it literally, like for me, and I've felt this before, I felt sluggish eating a high fat diet. Like even primarily unsaturated fats. I just never found that was efficient for me. And And then when I'm on a low fat diet, high carbohydrate, like my body's like dropping weight, my strength is there. Yeah, I mean, but I guess that's just science, really. I mean, that's how things work. You know, if the calorie deficit's there, I mean, and that's the other thing too. The training has to be hard. Like you can't just do it and do a kind of hum and haw. You know, I think that's also the difference. Like you look at the training like Ian's doing and James, like Robin knows like how much effort it takes to move those weights. Like no matter how big you are or whatever you might be taking, like it takes a lot of energy. So if you create that environment with the training, you almost need to have the carbohydrates at a certain percentage of your macronutrients. So you're basically fucked.
You need to restore that glycogen. And I don't think anybody gets big from training light and without intensity. I think everybody who knows what they're doing, like anybody who has, you know, a lot of muscle mass trains with a ton of intensity and does heavy enough weight with good form. But the good form comes later, because you learn that those motor patterns come later. Dana, I just wanted to interject. When you're talking about that lipoprotein issue that's floating around, do you traditionally have high cholesterol? Like, have you ever got your blood work back and you get like high LDL and low HDL?
I've had a couple of like times when I've had pulled my blood work and it's like my lipids and stuff have been not favorable. Okay. But when they were not favorable, it was when Dana wasn't following a diet. Okay. He was just like lifestyle wise, I'm like, okay, yeah, I know what's going on here. When I finished my show prep last fall, I was going to do the Toronto and then I did the Amateur Olympia. When I got my blood work in January, my cholesterol and my lipids and everything was the best it's ever been in my life.
Good.
And that made sense because the way I had ate, even, you know, obviously there's a lot of other things that don't support that. But in terms of the time period, like my dietary intake of everything that supports cholesterol was on point. So that was just a good sign to me that things are working good. It doesn't mean that I wasn't stressed. It doesn't mean that it was always good. You know, this was like off. So, you know, not a lot of things antagonizing my lipids, you know.
Yeah.
But yeah. So primarily for me, like my last blood work that I had, my diet and stuff wasn't ideal. And I had like that 7-week lockdown and I just basically, I got a Sea-Doo and just went on my Sea-Doo. I was like, there's no gyms. I'm like, I can't, like, there's not any point trying to fight about it. And, you know, so I was like, I got to do something. But yeah, like big part of my daily nutrition now is, you know, getting in a certain amount of eicosanoids like omega-6, 3 and 9, and fiber intake is highly optimal, probiotic and NAC and TUDCA. And basically the one thing I found I've had to be worried about is my fasting blood glucose. It's always is the A1C.
Robin talks about glucose a lot too. Your blood sugars.
I think, I like to test it multiple times in a day, especially in off season.
I'd have to, but
absolutely. I have that as well. I haven't been, I would be doing that if I was using something like insulin. Like,
wow. I mean, like even when we eat a shit ton of carbs, I remember Hassan Jama had a protocol in 2017 or 16.
I definitely need to be doing it every day. And I have it here. I just don't.
No, I'm not talking about insulin. I'm talking about.
I'm talking about checking my blood. I should be doing
checking your blood. Okay.
I should be doing it fasted every morning. Like that's just a good, like, that's a really good practice. Like if you're serious about bodybuilding and like to take your blood sugar every morning, it takes all of 4 seconds.
Yeah.
You got to do it. You got to do it a couple times though, because you want to, because if you're doing it,
the more data points.
Yeah. If you're doing it fasted, that's one thing, but you want to be doing it probably later in the evening when you're more likely to have a high glucose.
Yeah. You get the glucose in.
You want to see the change.
For most people, maybe not Dana, because if you're working 4 to 12, you're going to be moving around, you know, you're probably not going to have high blood glucose, but most people they're like sitting around and just watching TV at night while they're eating. So that would be when you want 100%. To check. Yeah. And if it's a little bit high, then you just go for a 10 or 15 or 20 minute walk. and then you come back and you can test it again, and you can be good to go for your meal. And that way, you know, you're not like overlapping meals, or you're not eating too many carbohydrates, because like you were saying, it only really makes sense, I think, for like 99.9% of bodybuilders, is that you want to have the majority of your food to grow around the carbohydrates, like you were saying. And then fats can only go so high. Any higher than, once you're getting enough fats, any higher than that, it's only going to kind of do you a disservice. Whereas with more carbohydrates is more insulin, and more insulin is more storage and more potential for anabolic growth. So I think it makes only more sense. And then the same thing with protein. Once we have enough, and then we already have more than enough. So we don't need twice as much more than enough than we need. We just need like 300 grams. That stays pretty much consistent.
You can only store so much glycogen in your muscle, right? And then
even
there's
on a contest,
glycogen.
Yeah, even on a contest prep, I don't feel like you need to bring protein up too much higher. Maybe a little bit more EAAs around training if you want to do. But at that point, I think you're just going to be converting a lot of that protein to carbohydrate anyway. So I still like to keep carbohydrates as high as possible for as long as possible on prep. But then also there is a period of time where you almost might need to, if you've done low carb and low fat and your metabolism is at a point where now you're burning through it too much, you're going to need to do something like increase your fats to slow down those carbs, or you can go back into a higher carb intake or more frequent refeed. But yeah, definitely you're going to get a better bang for your buck having a higher carb than a higher fat or a higher protein, especially if you just want to grow and like maintain the metabolism, the performance and stuff. So
what I was saying is that protocol was like 70 grams of carbs pre-workout, post-workout, and intra-workout with carb powders. So that's enough. You know, you don't need insulin to get your blood sugar going sky high when you're having like, you know, carb powders like that.
But that's why you wouldn't want to use or even potentially need insulin, because if you are running a high blood sugar at any point during the day, especially like around training, you know, if you're not, because you're going to be using whatever your body produces, right? But if you're eating 800 grams a day, at some point, you're going to have a hard time breaking down and shuttling all that glycogen. So the insulin is just to help. I think you like have to work your way up in eating. And then once you get to a point where then you need or you require the assistance of some of the insulin, that's when you use it. You don't kind of jump the gun and start using it before you've eaten yourself there. You know what I mean? Does that make sense?
Yeah, I agree. I agree. I think it's a case per case basis.
For sure.
And it's like, if you can regulate your blood sugar, it's always best, like with chromium or there's metformin. What's the natural
berberine?
Berberine.
RLA.
Berberine.
Cinnamon. Yeah, like I take berberine, I take ALA, I take chromium throughout the day. I think a lot of people can argue that there's not a whole lot of like point to it, especially when it comes down to money. And I mean, there's obviously very few things that you can go put your money into that are natural, that are like best bang for your buck always. It's hard to refute. If you're down to picking pennies, yeah, for sure. But I think long-term, you know, taking, you know, items and supplements like that are just help increase insulin sensitivity. Especially when you're trying to promote that. Like if you can promote that as much as you can. And like Robin said, I mean, there's obviously usually people that are, you know, at the higher end of the sport, case by case, when you're really trying to like push the food to the point where it's like, you know, you almost need to help the pancreas out. Like you're almost stressing. Like the issue is not so much the food as is the pancreas can't keep up with the blood glucose. Right. So that's when insulin's efficient. And even then it doesn't take a whole lot. It just like a little goes a long way. And that's also where people run into problems. You know, they overshoot things, they undereat things, you know, and that's something that, of course, I mean, just common sense. Like we've heard all the stories, oh man, like I've heard so many stories of just people running into issues. It's, you know, especially diabetics too. Right.
Yeah.
This is where amateurs don't go right, because they don't understand the science and the physiology. Right. So then they just take insulin whenever, and then they read somewhere that you need to use a fast acting and a slow acting. And before you know it, they made up some kind of concoction of a protocol, and they're just
the gym bro, like
the gym bros. Yeah. So, anyways,
the Lantus Humalog.
Yeah.
Trifecta.
With a jar of honey and
at 3 a.m.
and pineapple all day. Yeah.
And check your blood sugar so you don't go to the hospital. Wait a minute. This doesn't sound safe.
That's bodybuilding. Yeah. That's
I think the best coaches, they don't recommend more than 4 or 5 IUs a day or at a time.
I totally agree. That's not really to say that, like, I think anybody that, might use more is a bad coach. But then again, too, like, what I'm finding we're seeing a lot of, Robin, is like, there's a lot of like, oh, well, I made the choice to listen to that person and now I'm upset.
Yeah.
Because there's not very many people that are getting like blindsided anymore. Like back in the day when Robin and I were younger, there was a lot of people that were getting like tricked into doing things that they had no idea about and like on purpose. But now it's like everybody knows everything. Like,
yeah.
Like in 2009, 2010, when we started competing, and like think about all the new women competitors and stuff, and it was just like there was so much like like snake oil salesman stuff out there and like online and stuff, and it was just like overwhelming. And then all the stories you heard about all the different people at nationals and blah 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 blah, and it's like, so and so did this and they took that, and you're just like, holy shit, like.
But it's weird though, because in the amateurs, there's a lot of that snake oil stuff, but then when you get to the pros, it's like everybody's kind of just doing the same thing. Where in the amateurs is people are doing like just random things, like they're very random. Like it'll be like have like something that's like it'll have like XYZ at like this time of the day, like you were saying, like 3 a.m. It's very like arbitrary, like where did this come? Like this whole contest prep, where did these people come up with it? And like, how did it get started? Like, how did,
like the quarter diazide, you mentioned the quarter diazide last time. It's always a quarter diazide, take a quarter diazide.
Like who was the first one? Like, I just can't imagine a bodybuilder being backstage for the first time being like, I'm going to have this Reese's cup before the stage and beat everybody, or like the first guy to bring a bag of chips backstage. Everybody must've been just like looking at him like, what the fuck? This guy's eating chips. Like how dare he, but then somehow like maybe he was just already like the most peeled. He ate the chips and then he won the show. And then everybody was like, it's the chips.
Yeah, but it's not the fact that he's 4% body fat,
right?
Fucking depleted.
Yeah.
But at that point, go ahead, Dana. Sorry.
Robin, have you ever, or any of you guys, have you ever coached someone that was just like a garbage bin that you could not throw enough food on them to like maintain weight?
I think it depends how hard you prep. To be honest, I've run myself into such a depletion where it literally took me 5 weeks to eat myself back to like a homeostasis.
I've got a client he's in his 60s and he eats 5,000 calories a day and he doesn't have an active job. Like he's more or less sedentary and he just stays shredded, like 210, just shredded.
Maybe he's got a tapeworm.
Awesome.
No,
maybe it's probably genetic, whatever he's got going on.
Crazy metabolism. Yeah.
60 though.
Yeah.
Jesus.
So the one person I'll always remember that I coached, and it was just like, it was hilarious because it was just one of those situations where it was super, super unique that I had no idea what to do. So I was just like, okay, I'm just going to see what happens. So Adam Rochester?
No, sounds familiar.
From Australia, though. Adam Roch.
Okay.
So he hired me in 2016. We're like, he's like our age, and like he's like 264, like 5'10", like really good shape. But I'm telling you, man, like he was just, it was just like he couldn't. It was just falling off him. Like we would do like, his diet was like 4,600 calories, like 3 weeks out, and he was losing, like he would lose 2 or 3 kilos in 3 to 4 days. And then we started doing refeeds. It was just whenever he needed it, but it was like, he was losing so much weight every 3 to 4 days. It was like, dropping 4 to 5 pounds at like 4,700 calories. Like,
yeah, you got to slow it down.
So I was just like, okay, like and everything else was normal. And so I started him off with like a normal refeed, like maybe something like 5,500, something controlled. He didn't gain any weight. Okay. Like, I guess that's a maintenance for you. Like, and then as we got later into prep, man, like I just had to give him, I'm like, just do whatever you can eat, man. Like eat everything.
Yeah.
So one day he was like, man, I had like 2 things at Ben and Jerry's. I had a large pizza, named all the things. He was up 1 kilo.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
And I was like, fuck, man, like you look great. And you're only up like 2.5 pounds. Like you're going to poop that out by the end of the day.
Jean-Paul Fuchs. Was it Jean-Pierre or Jean-Paul? It was Jean-Paul Fuchs, the French guy. I don't know if you've ever followed him. Yeah, from the 90s. He apparently, according to him, went to buffets every fucking day. I don't know how many weeks out, but he said for the majority of his prep, he went to buffets every day and just ate everything he could. Like, I don't know what the guys in the 90s were doing. Maybe he was using 125 or 175 micrograms of T3 or something, but who knows?
You know what I would do in that situation is if somebody was
that big if he was using that much T3.
If they're burning that much and it's 5,500 on clean refeed days, that's when I would start to use a little bit of insulin. That's probably the only time that I would use insulin on a contest prep because there's going to be a point where you can't eat more food, because if you're eating like 6,000, 6,500, 7,000, you're just going to start distending, and you're going to start going in the wrong direction with the physique, especially when you're that close. Unless it's like Juan Morel, where you can just like, he can do like 10,000 calories in his stomach.
But that's what it was like with him, man. Like,
yeah. I would start using a little bit of insulin and just to help that food stick around a little longer.
I can't even remember if we did or not. Like, it's been since 2016. I can't remember.
Because at some point with junk food, unless again, like he's just a freak and he can, like Michael Lockett and step on.
Yeah, well, that's just it, man. He could eat. Like,
because at some point it's going to start creating inflammation because you're eating too much refined stuff. So that's the only time you have to use, like, that's when you almost have to start using that chemical assistance a little bit. You can increase his testosterone just a little bit near the end, or you can increase, things here and there, or add things here and there just to help to keep a certain level of like water retention, just to keep his weight. Because if you want, because is he a pro or not yet?
Oh, I have no idea.
Oh, because I mean, if you're 5'10",
he wasn't a pro at the time.
If you're 5'10" and 265,
no, he was just an amateur. He was just he was trying to win his pro card.
Because I'm 5'10" and I turned pro at 240. So if he was 265 and he's fucking shredded at 265, then I don't know. Like,
so he was like that. That was like around 6 weeks out, right? So he was probably like 240, but he was a little bit taller. Yeah. I don't think he was 5'10". I think he might be like 6, maybe
6 foot. Yeah, he must have been a 6 footer. We have crazy metabolisms. Like, I can remember going to all you can eat. I remember Joe Seaman and I were prepping one year, and I think I was at all you can eat sushi every third day. And then I started eating like from the bins at the bulk barns. I was going crazy. I was eating just everything and anything. And I'm like, Joe, can I have a dessert? And then I'd have like a ton of desserts. And I held that look for about 6 weeks doing that. Because when I saw him, he said, man, you're so flat 6 weeks out. And we started doing that pretty much every third day. And then it increased, and we did a show. And I held well. And I remember that just to peak, I ate so much shit. And then I peaked perfectly for that show. And then we had to hold it for provincials. And that was another 7 weeks. And then I remember my body was just like fucked after that. After the one show, the second week, I remember sleeping for a whole day and night and like waking up, like throwing up and for provincials, I looked like shit.
I don't think it makes a lot of sense to do all you can eat on a prep, because then it's hard to you're not going to know how to calculate.
You don't know the variables.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And there's too much distension with that. You need to really make sure that whatever's going in is like assimilating and keeping that tight stomach.
It's the same thing too. Like with me, I've never done well with food off of my plan. Like if I can eat, and like with a lot of my guys that I've worked with for a long period of time, we usually just find like we all know and understand that dieting comes down to macronutrients. You can track your macros.
Yep.
You could follow calorie intake. It is the same. However, when it comes to nutrient absorption, digestion, especially when you come into like, hey, we need to like we need to put your glycogen up. We need to fill you back out. You can't just pick random shit. It's not going to work. So I usually try and find whatever works best with them. So for like one of my guys who's competing now, Dylan, rice works really well with him. So when we do refeeds, it's like cream of rice.
I got it. I totally agree. That's not really up to the coach. It's up to the actual client to know, to be aware, to be self-aware enough to know what foods work well. But I have a funny story about that, because I was working with a client recently and he wanted to do a contest prep with me. And so I always send people a questionnaire and ask them about what kind of food that they like and tolerate well. And this, so the only foods that he gave me that he could tolerate well, cornflakes, pasta, and milk. And I'm like, what am I going to do with this? I'm like, what about rice? He's like, can't eat rice. Really bad for me. I'm like, okay, so what? Pasta, cornflakes, and milk.
Did you give him the Rice Krispies and the protein? Did you give him the Rice Krispies, man?
No, he only wanted cornflakes, man. He didn't like rice, so nothing with rice. So
crazy.
Yeah.
Cornflakes aren't that bad though. They're like 1 gram of sugar or 2 grams of sugar per 1 cup, I think.
Needless to say, he didn't follow through on this prep. But I think, it's just a story that it goes to show you that there's going to be a lot of overlap with diets, a lot of it does come down to chicken and rice, and I was talking to someone yesterday at the gym and they were like, because I'm working with Dorian Hamilton or Team HD. And he goes, well, when you're working with these guys, I guess he's seen how the diet's outlined. Oh, there's a lot of chicken and rice, a lot of rice. Do you get bored with that? And I'm like, no, man, I have like 6 or 8 different sauces that I use for like a different, I have a different flavor for each meal. You can combine things. You can use different vegetables. Like, I don't know. I feel like if you need a lot of variety, then it makes things way more complicated, in my opinion.
It does.
Dude, and we've never lived in a better time than today, because we have, like, for sauces, even when you start your diet, I thought I was in heaven this year with the new what did that guy? There's a new sauce out. I forget that guy's name, but they sell it at the supplement case.
Guy Fieri.
Saucy?
Yeah,
or G Hughes.
Saucy?
G Hughes. Both of them are good. G Hughes is better.
G Hughes you can get at Costco. You get two big ones for like $10.
Oh, they have it at Costco now? No shit. Yeah,
it's really good at Costco.
Wow.
You know what? I don't do a lot of sauces, man. I'm weird.
You just keep it basic, eh?
I do like my sauces.
To be honest, like it's like I'll do like the sugar-free ketchup, or I'll do the sugar-free barbecue by Kraft. And I typically just do maybe a tablespoon worth at the most. But like if I'm doing contest prep, man, I don't use any, because like Patrick doesn't really want, like he's pretty like, he's pretty like, this is the food you eat. But honestly, I'm okay with it because I like the foods that I have in my meal plan. Like people are like, oh, that sucks. It's like, honestly, every time I eat, like in prep, one time he gave me sushi. I was shitting, like, man, I was farting, shitting for like the whole next day. I was like, was horrible.
Yeah.
And it was good. It ate good, but I wasn't eating sushi at all. Yeah. So I almost get I'm at the point now where I've been doing it for so long that like the idea of eating off my plan gives me more anxiety than it does like joy. I'm like, no, fuck that.
What I do is the same with you. Like on a contest prep, I'll still have sauces, but I cut them very minimal at that point. I only do the 0-calorie sauces on contest prep. So you only really got Frank's and mustard at that point, but you don't really care at that point because you're just so hungry anyways. It's just in the off season. It's nice to have like a couple to pull from. Like you got a barbecue sauce,
absolutely.
You got your ketchup, you got your sweet mustard. Maybe you have a deli mustard. Maybe you got like I use a gluten-free soy sauce. What else? What else do we use? Sriracha. Almost forgot, but I can't forget about sriracha.
Real mayo.
You got like 10 different sauces in the fridge. You can't go wrong.
Real mayo.
You got the real mayo.
Real mayo. Yeah, right. But the funny thing is too, like some of these no calorie sauces probably have more sugars than we know. But anyways, I think
sugar alcohols too. Some of them
sugar alcohols too, so they'll give you the shits.
But
I don't know how you.
I don't personally think a lot of the sweeteners are really problematic for like the majority of people. Like,
yeah,
it's so funny to have people argue with you that drinking a regular Coke is better for you than drinking a diet one. It's like, listen, that's not the
argument I've ever heard.
Like the laws of thermodynamics, like everything about that. So if you're telling me you have 6 cans of Coke, which is how much more sugar, and not only is it calories in your diet, but it's straight refined sugar. It's like, you don't need it. So then do that for 6 months and tell me how that affects your whole body composition, your overall health, your cholesterol, your cardiovascular health, your lip, like everything, your insulin resistance. It's like,
I definitely agree. And
we live in a world without common sense,
right? Because in a can of sugar, like full sugar Coke, you're looking at 40 grams of sugar, something like that. So if you drink a Diet Coke, and it's whatever, however much sucralose is in there, I don't know, but let's say it's 0.1 milligrams, right? It's like, well, and then if you have, it just gets worse as you multiply, right? Then if you have 10 Cokes, now you've got 400 fucking grams of sugar. Where if you had 10 Diet Cokes, I think you'd still be fine. Like you wouldn't be like in a fucking hyperglycemic coma. You'd be like, you might have like a little bit of bloating. You know,
I don't think it would phase you at all.
But if anybody drinks 10 cans of fucking Coke and you're not bloated, there's something fucking wrong with you.
Well, people got all up in a buzz.
There's carbonation, and
people got all freaked out because there were some studies that came out that where it found that like sucralose or artificial sweeteners like played some kind of role with the microbiome. No, not really. Okay, blood sugar, yeah, but I think that was like bullshit. People weren't really concerned, because it's just a drop in the bucket at that point. But I feel like, listen, like at the end of the day, you can talk about one thing and super focus on that, like having some sweeteners in your diet, or you can look at the grand scheme of things. It's like Dana was saying, he has a fiber supplement, a probiotic, probably takes enzymes. He eats veggies all day, chicken, rice, and then he has a Diet Coke, or like maybe even if he has one with every meal, I don't care. Cause at the end of the day, it's still a lot better than if you were to start adding in refined sugars all of a sudden.
Oh yeah,
right?
Absolutely.
Because now you're exponentially damaging your insides and your physique, right? It's like, I think for us, obviously, because we take performance enhancing drugs, we're much more likely from a psychological perspective to take something that doesn't affect our physique, but might potentially, in quotes, disrupt our microbiome versus something that will 100% affect our physique. And then whatever happens inside, we're maybe not as sure about, but I think it's okay in moderation. That's
microbiome shit anyways. I mean,
I think it's an important consideration, but like I'm saying, like if you're taking a probiotic, I think you're okay to have a Diet Coke. Or for us, it's more like, maybe we kind of have to be careful because we look at like, well, we have maybe like a pre-workout, intra-workout, protein powder, a post-workout. Those all have sweeteners. So maybe there's something going on there. But again, at the end of the day, like we're doing everything else to be as tuned in with our digestion as possible. I think that's more important.
It's the better of the evils, though. Like, would you rather drink sugar or a little bit of sweetened pop or sweeten, whatever it may be?
But it also
infinitely better than sugar.
It also comes down to a few other things as well. So if we're talking about the sweeteners in general, so if you're talking about like sucralose, aspartame, whatever the sweet and low one is,
erythritol, maltitol,
so the high levels of toxicity, because all those compounds have a toxicity limit. So I think something like, to reach the toxicity level of the amount of aspartame you would need to ingest based on our body weight, because they've done studies with rodents and stuff. So there's a good calculation, based on their weight, killed them. I think you would need to drink, I think it's 1,002 liters of Coke Zero to get the actual toxicity levels of aspartame. So, and that's just the research, right? We don't know, because like you said too, and I mean, this comes down to everything. If everybody in the world takes a drug, that's happening, or something. Everybody has a different genetic makeup. They have a different, chromosomal. Some people have less. Some people have normal chromosomes. Some people have more. There's all kinds of things out there that everyone has. It's like you can't predict the outlying stuff. But if you have, like Robin said, if you have one thing, one Coke Zero a day, honestly, you'll be fine. It's the same thing. If you smoke one cigarette in your life, you're probably going to be okay.
Yeah, you're right. Everybody's physiology is vastly different. And that's the same thing you hear about.
If you die from Coke Zero, honestly, it's probably for the best.
It's the same thing about that kid who had the energy drink at school. And then there's studies and it's there's warnings on Health Canada about energy drinks being, terrible because a kid died from energy drink. It's like, well, what kind of genetic, predisposition did this kid have?
Usually die from something.
Die from fucking, like, what is in an energy drink? Some guarana, some maybe like a little bit too much caffeine for some people. Yeah, it's probably the caffeine that killed the kid.
Yeah,
or which is sad. But I mean, like, he probably had some kind of palpitation issue or some arrhythmias. It has nothing to do with the fucking product itself.
The stimulus.
Yeah, the stimulated product. Yeah,
a life-death event.
But anyways, I don't think sweeteners are going to kill anyone. I don't think sweeteners are going to do any negative damage.
Well, I think it just goes back to being more self-aware. Like, as an example, I'm generally not very good with anything that ends with tol, like erythritol or sorbitol. I tend to avoid those completely. But if I have sucralose or stevia, it's not really an issue. So I think it's like, it really comes down to you being aware enough with your body to see if those things affect you. And if they don't, and you feel fine with them, then there's no issue having it in your diet. I would say anyways. And if anything, if you want to be like super hardcore, then you can do what I do. And you just cut it out at like 4 weeks out. You just like cut out your sweeteners. Cause at that point, it doesn't even fucking matter anyways. And if anything, it'll help you be like 1% drier.
I was watching Ian Valliere's latest video before he competed at the Arnold's, before he competed at the Arnold's. And he was keeping everything in. He's keeping like his pre-workout in. He's keeping his amino acids in, even though there's sweetener. He's like, listen, if it ain't broke, don't fix it.
Well, that's what I did for Puerto Rico, because I still wanted to have my pre-workout and my amino acids. But I don't know. I still feel like I could have been like 1% drier if I cut them out. So it's up to you, right? Like you have to consider, like, is a 1% potential improvement in my physique worth my unhappiness for having to cut out the things I like? It's just, you have to weigh that out, and everybody's going to be different with that. When I won my pro card, I cut everything out for 4 weeks, and I was just drinking sour ass citrulline before the gym. I was just like, and a caffeine tab, and it worked fucking amazingly. So I didn't do that this time. So I think there's something there, but again, it's like how crazy you want to take it. But again, there's levels, right? If you're competing against Nick, who maybe he cuts everything out and he's so fucking dialed in, and then you're the guy who still has your sweeteners in, who do you think is going to win? Who's going to go in there with a more dominating attitude, right? If you're sipping on your pre-workout and your opponent is fucking chewing on caffeine tabs, who do you think is going to be more dominant and aggressive on stage?
I think the point is, if it ain't broke, don't fix it.
No, I don't think that's true though, because this is a sport about getting to your fucking best. If you want to be like, fucking middle class, mid tier, then if it ain't broke, don't fix it. That's totally up to you. And that's a valid way to be, if that's the way you want to be. But I think if you want to be at the upper echelon, then you have to think, what is that 1% thing that I can do to be better?
But in Ian's defense, in this case, I would say he did 2 shows prior to this one, and he was on point there. At least he was on point prior to coming into the Arnold's. So maybe his perspective is, if I pull something, maybe it'll be worse.
It's a placebo at that point, right?
Yeah.
Because
I think it's just like,
don't forget that. Sorry, go ahead, Dana.
I think
Dana, you can slow down on the eating too. We don't mind you eating, man.
No, this shot fast I eat, man. I'm
okay.
He's a growing boy.
I think I think the objective way to look at it is it's both right.
Yeah.
Because like Robin said, there's always a chance that there is the right decision to make changes. And I think that comes down to everything that we do, right? But it's also in the same sense, there's other scenarios where the same athlete, the same person, the same physique, the same genetics, there's other situations that come up where it's like, don't change a damn thing. Like whatever you're doing, don't change anything. Just keep doing what you're doing. But I think it comes down to like learning to have the ability to like know which is the right move. And I think in like, for example, like the Ian situation, it's easy for us to say, well, and for Robin to be like, yeah, well, I don't know if that's necessarily the best move to go. And I agree in some senses. And you might say, no, if it ain't broke, don't fix it. But at the end of the day, like if him and Patrick are doing their check-ins, whatever they decide to go on is probably what they're going to do. They're not trying to, and Ian's probably not trying to overthink that. Yeah. Just from objectively looking at it. But at the same time too, there's probably going to be situations like maybe for the Olympia, maybe Ian decided, I don't know, maybe he changed a few things here and there just to make sure he was a little drier or they agreed to do something or whatever. I don't know. Right.
True.
Well, that's the other thing too, is you have to try things in order to know, right? It's like, James, if I'm going to keep everything the same for this show, and then the next show I'm going to leave, exactly. I'm going to add something in. That's the only way I can know if it worked or not. Right.
So can we totally go ahead, Dana? I was thinking
the other thing is too, like, look at James, you know, he didn't do any other shows this year, but the Olympia, because he knows his best look comes from when he just does one prep. Like when he starts to get into doing like this show and then that show, he doesn't really improve. He fades. So if you look at his approach, he just did the one prep, and same with Hunter. Hunter did a couple shows earlier, then he pulled back. He skipped out on the Arnold, whatever, his choice. But I think for Hunter, he probably feels better that he's just focused on the Olympic, you know, and then it's always just comes down to guys, especially at that age and like that, you know, rank of whatever they're doing. It's, you know, even for Robin too, right? Like we've been doing this pretty much just as long as these guys, if not longer than most of them, you know? So it's like, it's just, everything changes so much and it screws your head because it's like, you rely so much on experience, you know, and those feelings. Right. And then of course we've also had different coaches and stuff like that. So it's like, okay, is this feedback the same as the last time I had feedback about this with my other coach? You know?
Well, I think it's important to trust your coach for sure. Yeah,
absolutely. And then that also comes down to like, okay, shut up. You're on a bunch of gear. Like you need to trust that everything's fine. And then you're just like, yeah, okay.
yeah. Because you're not going to make a sound judgment when you're on that much gear.
Well, and the other thing is too, a lot of times I find guys do this. This is this psychological thing with bodybuilders. They start to doubt themselves. And then I've done this myself. So you start to doubt yourself. You're not doubting the coach and the coach's decisions, but then you turn that self-doubt into, oh, well, maybe he's making the wrong decisions. Right.
Yeah, guilty.
Yeah. Maybe, I don't know if I don't know if this is the right move. And it's like, it has nothing to do with that other than you didn't trust yourself for a second. And now you're trying to project it. Oh, it's because of my coach. Right. There's a lot of that, but sometimes you just need to like come back to earth.
I think it's scenario based, but I think, guilty. I think everybody bodybuilder, I would be hard pressed to see a bodybuilder that hasn't had self-doubt like 4 weeks out. I know I'm the worst. I've been a head case until this year's been a better year actually. But
I think we've only witnessed one bodybuilder in the last few years that's had no self-doubt.
Who's that?
Nick
Walker?
Yep.
I don't know yet. He's so fresh. We don't know yet. It's too new. You know, when you're enjoying the process and you're fresh. I remember my first year's bodybuilding. I had Ian and Tony Searle as my coach. And I just listened. And I didn't know what to expect. I granted Nick Walker knows what to expect. Okay, fine. But maybe he's just good at just doing and going with the flow for now. You know, there will be a day he gets older. I guarantee that he's going to get older and the self-doubt's going to creep in when he gets more success. He's successful right now, but what if he rises to the top too quick? Like, it's inevitable.
But that's whatever comes is going to be a part of his journey, right? Like,
yeah.
The thing is about Nick is that his confidence is so genuine because he's riding a very, very like planned and thought out. Like everything is just like running nice and hot, but I think he's in the headspace where if he doesn't succeed, it's not going to be because of him. Right. It's going to be like that. Like, you know what I mean? It's like, I did everything I could at this show. So if I didn't win, well, then next year we're going to do this.
Yeah.
And then next year. So as long as he has that mentality and he can take which I'm sure is going to be fine. I mean, it seems like he has a really good team around him. And you can only hope that, the best for everybody, right? Like him included.
Where do you guys see?
It's nice to see guys just, do well and things go well. It's refreshing.
I think Paul's trying to raise his hand.
Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
Okay. Where do you guys see Nick Walker placing? I need to know this.
Before we get into that, I think it all comes down to the self-confidence thing, right? Because if you have doubts, and then like Dana said, you portray those doubts onto other people, and then those people can't help you do what you need to do. But it's like the bodybuilding thing is, I don't think people understand how like incredibly simple it is. It's just like, it's like doing it. It's just doing it and doing it. People are like, oh, like, how do I get started? I'm like, you just start.
Just do it. Yeah.
You just do it. And you do it every day. And then people are like, whoa, man, like you must have been a big kid or you must have been huge. How'd you get so huge? And it's like, I've just been doing the same thing over and over for the past decade, now 12 years when I think back.
It's kind of like getting a degree or anything, though. It's funny because no matter what you do, it's the same thing when you start a new job. Like if it's a really, really, really task-oriented job and there's like a lot of cognitive demands, you're like, how the fuck am I ever going to learn this? And you do it and you do it over.
True, but I think that with bodybuilding, it's the only thing that you aren't really sure of is like when it's going to happen. And I think that's why Nick is so elated, because I think at the beginning, he didn't expect it to happen so quickly. He just knew that it was going to happen.
He had a belief that he was able to do things that people said he couldn't.
Right.
And I think for Nick, he put himself in the best position to make the fruition of all his hopes and dreams come to life by just working hard. Yeah. And it's been working out. He hasn't had any roadblocks. Like he's had nothing but support. So his momentum and his stride has just been like work, which has been good. Like he's been obviously, and I think that over time that's going to keep, becoming a consistent thing with him. I think it's 2021. He's very open. He's not hiding too much. Like he's being pretty vulnerable with himself, with everybody, and like expressing emotions and like being involved. And I think the more that he connects with everybody around him when he doesn't do well, because there's going to be times when he's not going to feel good. It comes with it all, right? He's going to have a foundation of support. And I think that's going to make a big difference.
Well, I think it's like the analogy is those little, do you guys ever have those little like Hot Wheel, like things like when you were a kid, you'd like build it and it'd be like a little track and you'd stick it on the spinner and it would like shoot it through. You guys know what I'm talking about?
Yeah.
It's like bodybuilding is like that. Cause you're going to be going along the path kind of slow and you're going to have to go like around a loop and around some fucking bends, but then you're going to hit that shooter and it's going to get you going again. Right. But it's like with every little victory that happens and you have to continue. Cause once you like allow yourself to stop, then it's like that car, it just stops and then that's it. Right. You're off the track. You just kind of have to stay on the track. And you just keep fucking going. And it's not going to be a straight track. People are like, oh, you just,
Yeah, trust me, I try to stay on the track every day, bud.
It's not linear.
It's not linear. The journey isn't linear. And then you're going to get shit like injuries.
I was talking about trains. I try and stay on the tracks every day.
Fuck, I hope so, man.
Yeah.
See on rail. I don't want to hear like any incidents in New Brunswick now. I'll be like, Dana.
Knock on wood. Yeah.
Yeah, knock on wood. No, I'm sure there won't be.
Yeah, no, you're right, man.
Let's,
it's all about consistency.
Yeah.
Let's do these because it's like 6:44. Let's talk about the Olympic
last thing about that. It's consistency, but I think the last thing to say is that it's important to remember that being consistent isn't always like a lot of fun either. So when you're going around those bends on your journey on this track, you keep going even when it really like slows you down and it sucks, and you keep going, and then eventually you get a break, and it kind of helps you. And that can be like a support system, or it can be anything, but there's always going to be those things along the way that help you keep going if you are on that track. It's like there'll be a teacher there, like, they say like the teacher's there when the student is ready. Like that person can appear, or a friend, or whatever, or a spouse, when you're ready for those things that help you keep moving.
Yeah.
I think,
and you know what? I found that, like for me, training, like you said, it's not always fun, but I get a sense it's a little bit deeper for me. Like bodybuilding came second.
Yep.
But like training, because I always did sports, and once sports ended, bodybuilding became my new focus. That's the only way I've known how to function my whole life, is playing sports, practices games. But like, I get a sense of peace from it. It's the only thing in my life, no matter what I've ever had going on, that from training, I get a sense of peace and fulfillment. So what that's helped me with is that when we're doing contest preps and my energy is low, even if I'm not having fun, I get a very, very big sense of peace and fulfillment outside of doing the workout, doing the training. Cause there's always a lot of other stuff. And I've a lot of my bigger lifts, I think I've learned really well how to emotionally detach whatever I'm feeling from anything and put it into my training. I've always been able to, cause at one point when I started getting strong enough to train, doing 500 whatever pounds of anything, I had to almost find ways to like convince myself that I could do it mentally, even though I could do it. Yeah. So I got really good at putting my problems into the training. So when I do it, it's like, it's almost like therapy for me, it's like
for myself, it's not like putting the problems into my training, but it's like I bring my problems in there for sure.
Yeah. And it's not,
but they go away, but they get channeled. They get channeled differently. Like I don't listen to music. I don't know if you guys are the same. Somebody asked me the other day, actually I get this question a lot. They're like, why don't you listen to music when you train? For me, that throws off my rhythm because I feel the weights. I don't know if anybody else, like I feel the weights. I feel the rhythm in my head when I'm moving the weights.
So just to correct you. Yeah. I didn't like, I don't know if I said that. I didn't mean like, I don't put my problems into the gym. I put my emotions. So
I agree.
It has nothing to do with the specifics. So it's like, for me, if I'm having a sad day, if I'm having a happy day, if I'm having an angry day, and I think music is definitely a big thing for me. Like I'm very creative, and like the type of music I'm listening to triggers whatever I'm feeling throughout the day. And then I feel like the connection between me and the weights is like finding music that kind of speaks about how I'm feeling. It could be 50 Cent talking about selling guns, or it could be Five Finger Death Punch telling me about how fucking people got your back and fuck everybody and blah, blah, blah. It could be
That's
like
cool.
Eminem talking about whatever. Could be Britney Spears.
For me, I always like to have music, but I'm different because I'll have like I'll make a playlist and I'll ride that playlist for like however long. I don't know, like until I just, and I'll have like maybe like 5-10 songs, and I just keep playing those same songs like every gym session. It's almost like I have a theme. Like I like to keep a theme for like maybe a month. So it could be like all like screamo for a month, and then it could be like all rap for a month, and then it could be like all EDM for a month. Or sometimes I go like no music. Like if I train with Mike, then I really like just like having someone talking to me.
Yeah.
Like just talk to me during the set, like tell me, talk to me during the set, baby. sometimes it just helps because just if you have like kind of like someone telling you one focus, like one thing over and over, like chest up, or shoulder down, you just like you get into your body really well that way, just to have that reminder.
I think when you need to be a student, I think music is a hindrance.
Yeah.
But if you're in a relationship, like a training relationship situation, which has nothing to do with the relationship, but it has to do with like, if you have a gym partner and you guys are going to do your workout together, you almost need that music to like maintain. So like once your set comes in, put the tunes in, you get into your place, you go through your set, and then you rack it, and then you get your music off and you kind of just breathe and chill. And then you spot them. I find that's a good space to be in with you have a training partner and you're kind of in that rhythm. Cause I don't know, man, I just find it's always like, there's a little bit of that competitiveness. You're like, hey, I can't like, I got to fucking get an edge. Like I got to keep up with them, or I got to push harder.
Yeah, definitely.
But yeah, like it's like you said, it just depends. And I have a playlist. It's called Pro Card Fuel. And I have songs in there and it's from the last show I did. So there's also that too. I listened to it my last prep. So it's kind of nostalgic in a sense of like, I find when I listen to certain songs and playlists of songs during certain times of my bodybuilding, those songs trigger a lot. Like when I'm in the gym and it comes on, it triggers like years of preps and like workouts and sets. And
100%.
It almost like, I find it takes me back to a place where I need to be. And it's not like a place forward or backward. It's like the workouts where I've been in the same position with the same amount of weight on the bar, with the same goal. And it's just like, it kind of like reminds you like where you're at. Like, okay, this is your thing. Like, this is what you're doing. Like
100%.
You need to get this set. Like you've gotten this set before, 10 reps, easy, like in your head. And it's like, you don't have a choice when that song comes on. It's like, and there's like 5 or 6 of them for me. And it's like, when they come on, I'm like, and there's a few songs, like few drowning pool songs from like back in the day when I was like 18, when I had no confidence, but I was acting confident in the gym. I'd be like, yeah, I'm so pumped, blah, 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 blah.
Right.
But yeah, I find a lot of the music just depends. And some of those songs, there's a few songs that I have that I've listened to some like for some really, really big sets before. And there's a time that there's a little short period of time where I would go to a place that was really fucked up to get some of the sets that I had to do done. Like I'm thinking about some really messed up stuff. And it was really strange. And if some of those songs come on, I can't listen to them.
Yeah.
I can't. There's not like, if I'm listening to it and it comes on, it has to go off immediately or it will totally throw me off.
So you guys use the music as a cue, like it cues emotions.
Yeah.
Emotional
it's not with all music, but it's like most, there's songs that I've kind of scarred myself, I guess, really in a way.
Well, usually when athletes get into the zone, there's some kind of trigger, right? Like when they study the zone and how people get into the zone, everybody has different triggers for this. So it can be really rewarding to have a good training partner who will understand how to get you into your zone and vice versa. Then you won't need music to do that at all.
Absolutely.
Or even if you just have a trainer and it could be like one thing they say. It could be a pep talk. It could be one sentence. It could be one word. It could be a touch. It could be anything. And music, like as an individual, like there's going to be certain things that I listen to that also I can get into the zone with, like you were saying, like there's one song and it'll be like, that's the song that I need for a heavy hack squat, or that's the song.
Right.
And it could be like the same song that I've listened to for 10 years, but you just save it. Like it's in the bank and you're like, okay, it's time, like
you pull that one out. Yeah.
Time to use it, but you don't waste it on a fucking barbell curl or something like that.
No,
like, you're going to have a different tune for that. Right.
Yeah. It's all like, I find it's weird. Like I find like, it's almost like I have a very creative visual mind. So when I hear these songs and stuff, it's almost like I'm walking into like a Monday Night Raw wrestling match and that song is playing and like the bar is in the middle of the arena and you've got to like show up to the bar and like hit that set. Like that's how my mindset. So like you said, like if I'm like training arms and like my Death by Squats song comes on or whatever, right? I'm like, no, I got to get out of this because I'm not doing that. Like, it's like you're wearing the wrong outfit. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's your nervous system, right? Because the nervous system will attach itself to certain anchors.
It's crazy, right? Your psyche.
Because that's the thing is if you were like, let's say you've trained your nervous system to get to a point where you can like go 10 out of 10 on your squats with XYZ song. Well, if you're listening to XYZ song when you're trying to chill out in your car, now you're sending your nervous system a different signal where it's like, this is my chill song. So now you're going to go into your squats the next time and be like, oh, why isn't it getting me as pumped? That's why. It's almost like you've abused it. You know, it's like, oh, you've not, maybe not abused it, but like you've played your hand too soon. You don't have that hand for when you need it. So
that's why so many things are almost placebo-like effect, right? That's why placebo is so imperative. Like the pre-workout that might not even be doing you any good, might be placebo.
Oh, it does.
Oh no, they work.
It always works.
Most of the time they do.
No, but it's
unless you're 20 weeks into prep and you're fucking dying.
But also remember like that there's a placebo effect called the nocebo effect, and that's also just as powerful. So if you don't have your pre-workout and you're like, I really want my pre-workout, or it's not going to be as good of a workout, guess what? It's not going to be as good of a workout because you've just done the placebo in the opposite effect.
A lot of guys do that when they come off gear too. So
that's a huge one for sure. Yeah.
Can't have that.
Yeah.
You gotta, when you're a bodybuilder, I think you have to have a consistent mindset that you're going to be strong every day. Like I don't go in there without thinking I'm going to do 315 on that.
Well, I think it's dumb when people are like, oh, this and this, but I'm off right now. It's like, I don't give a shit if you're off right now. Nobody cares. You know?
Nobody, yeah.
That's like,
it's not an excuse.
I lost 30 pounds because I'm off right now. I'm like, that's not a being off problem. That's a you eating problem.
Dummy.
Mm-hmm. So, okay. It's 7:00 and we all got to eat. So let's transition to the Olympia because we got to know. Nick Walker, we were talking about Nick. Where do you guys see him?
Second or third, probably.
Second or third?
I would say so.
Would you say so? Dana?
Is William Bonac doing the show?
Bonac pulled out, didn't he? I read something about Bonac.
That was the Arnold.
Okay.
I think Bonac's going to slip out of the top 5.
Yeah, I don't think Bonac has. He's got such a small frame to fill with all that mass.
I think Nick is going to do higher than people really expect.
Yep.
5, 6.
But I don't. I will say that I don't think he's going to win. I don't, because, and that's not to say, oh my gosh, hold on here. Hold on. It's not to say that he or anybody else there can't win. It's just that the other thing that people are underestimating is that, okay, Rami looked pretty damn good last year, but that, like, looking at his physique, that was like 75%.
Yep.
And he's the kind of guy, like, you got to understand this. He's Egyptian. This comes down to mindset. Like, he comes from, I think he's like Islamic or Muslim, like over there.
A fisherman, like a hardcore fisherman.
And like being in the shoes that he's in is like, man, like that guy probably just spent had the most productive 12 months of his life, because it's like he's living it, and he's not going to be the guy to waste that. And him working with another coach similar to Nick, like he's been working with Matt. Like, coaching thing is the big plus here. You've got Rami with him and Chad, they have it figured out, and obviously Matt and Nick have it figured out. Yep. But here's the other thing: Brandon looks like he's got it figured out with his coach that he's had for a while as well. And then you've got
Ian and Patrick.
Ian and Patrick, they definitely know how to work together. Especially the differences with Ian and Patrick is what you see is that Ian has shown up a little bit off, but guess what? They've turned it around every single time.
Every time, yeah.
So that's a really good thing to have when things don't work out, because there's a lot of other coaches that they're on when they're on, and then this is not necessarily just a coach thing. This is also an athlete thing. There's some athletes when they're on, and when they're off, they're really off or whatever. Right. But the other part of it is too, is that we've also seen a number of guys show up at the Arnold who I would have expected to place a lot higher, that were like, holy shit, I forgot they were in the show.
Yeah.
I know, it's
which
crazy.
is not saying anything. It's not saying anything against them, but it's just like, it's the reason why I hate doing these bodybuilding predictions. You can't, it really, once they come out at prejudging, once guys come out at prejudging, you're like, oh shit. Yep.
Yeah.
Yep.
Right.
I agree.
You know what I mean?
It doesn't
right.
really make a lot of sense to even try to predict, because it only matters what's actually happening.
I think the one thing that we can definitely bank on is that Ramy, high chance he's not going to lose.
Yeah, I agree.
Now,
I agree. Nobody's going to knock Ramy.
Now, here's the other thing too that I think I agree with. Well, in my opinion, but I think it's more an objective look as well. Hadi is going to be phenomenal. I can't see, like, listen, he's like just doing a reference of like the guys of like seeing him. Remember when he did that Vancouver show?
Yeah.
Like, I remember someone like Ian being like, I've never seen anything like that. And here's the thing. Nick looks phenomenal, but with standing next to a Ramy and a Hadi, they have all the same things, but better shape, better structure, more mature muscle. It comes down to just like a little bit of that 0.5 more refinement of a genetic difference. Mm-hmm. Now, the one thing Nick is not going to have is he's not going to have a problem with his conditioning. He's not going to have a problem with his posing. And that's also a problem. If Nick is better at posing than these other guys, he can move up spots for sure. His posing was unreal, man. He was holding everything. Boom, boom, every shot. Even the shots that he wasn't like favorable in, he was the first one in and he held them. And that makes a huge difference.
Yep.
You know, it's almost like F1 racing.
Yep.
You know, if a guy shows up to a race and he can hold the lead, then everyone's fucked.
Exactly.
You know?
Yeah. No, I think when it comes down to that, that's why, like, if they're going to compare them for longer than 1, 2, or 3 rounds, then it's going to really come into play, like how well you can pose.
But guess who was doing the same thing last year? Ramy. Ramy was held every pose. And you know for sure that the past 3 weeks, Dennis James has been wiping his ass on the floor. Like, I don't even know if that's a saying, but he's been wiping the floor.
I understood it. That's something I would have said, so I'm good with it.
I think it's good because that was kind of what happened in 2018 where Phil got beat, not because necessarily what he didn't look good. It was just because he
just not controlling his poses.
Presentation.
His stomach. Yeah.
Presentation. Yeah.
And that's the difference about the show. That's what's so interesting about the show is that you've got the top upper echelon of the good, better, and best genetics of every kind of shape and insertion, and then the best conditioning of all of it. So even the guys that aren't as favorable, like Nick is not as favorable for his overall shape, but like, it's funny when he turned to the back of the Arnold, his structure shape is a huge favorable thing from the back. His lats come in, his glutes have a very interesting structure. And then the way he poses it, it's like, holy shit.
Right. Exactly.
Yeah.
And that it's just, you know, and like, for example, Robin, like I remember like even it's so funny because, you know, next year there's going to be a whole, like Brett Wilkins isn't doing the show. Diash is not doing the show.
Yeah.
There's probably quite a few other guys that like think about that guy who does the IFBB Elite. I don't know. He must be getting paid big money, man.
Yeah. I know what you're talking about.
He must be the guy he's doing all the YouTube videos right now.
Hey there, man.
Yeah.
It's gotta be worth it for him. They must be like, he's probably getting paid big time. Like he has to be.
100%.
Listen, gents, my apologies. I got to sign off here. I got to go get some groceries because I kind of was in a pinch. But I'm going to let you guys chat it out. Is that cool?
We can always jump on another time too. It's I mean, we've gone on quite a while. So if you want to call it there, we can do another one next week. It's all good.
Yeah.
Okay, cool. Let's do it with Dana. Dana, are you good to talk again next week?
Sure.
Cool.
Let's do it. Yeah. I like having Dana on.
Sounds good. Okay, guys. Yeah, no, that's cool. It was a really good talk. Thanks, Dana, for coming on. Whoa, you got some grays going on there, Dana?
Yeah, man. Yeah,
Dana, man, I think I got like almost 20 years on you, dude.
My dad's
going gray yet.
So before we head off, guys, just want to let you guys know to remind you guys to go to our YouTube channel. Make sure you subscribe. Also, shout out to our sponsors, Gorilla Wear and Helix SARMs. you can go on the websites, which is in the description, and both codes for both, the code for both websites is the same, beef 20. Yep.
Yeah. Use the code, guys. Check out the SARMs too. My favorite is MK677. Huge fan of it. I don't know.
Actually, I like the YK11. I think that one we can talk about a little bit more next time, but I think that one has probably the most use for bodybuilders who want to get like really, really big, like taking your genetics to the next level, because it does have potential to reduce myostatin. So
Robin and I are going to have a SARMs show soon. Maybe Dana wants to jump. I don't know how much Dana knows about SARMs.
Do you use SARMs, Dana, or no?
I know quite a bit. I researched the shit out of everything.
Yeah. Do you ever use them or no?
Yeah. Ever since I was 18, man, just.
Yeah. Does Patrick give you any SARMs or?
No.
No SARMs.
No, Patrick doesn't like MK. I remember asking him about it.
Yeah. I've definitely used MK on my own. Like if like Patrick's like, I need you to eat this much food. And I'm like, I can't. Like,
Pop MK.
Take MK. It's not like I don't think it's really a huge, like the thing is with MK, I mean, it's just a peptide stimulating secretolog, right?
The secretolog,
yeah.
You're ghrelin.
It's not really a SARM. Yeah.
No, it's not a SARM at all. That's why I keep telling people.
SARM,
but they sell it. SARM companies sell it. But the ghrelin, I mean, is enough to like, and I think that's what coaches are doing a lot. They're like, "Whoa, this guy can't eat a lot of food. Let's give him some MK."
Yep.
Yeah, been a really big like help for the majority community. Because the other thing is too, I've actually known females and stuff who've had eating issues, like serious eating disorder issues, like borderline problematic, and that's something that's helped them a lot.
Okay.
You know, the other type of thing you can do is marijuana, cannabis, right? To stimulate your appetite for some people, like, you know, however they want to do their cannabis. But that and like these.
Oh,
Dana jumped off.
No worries. I was going to follow up Dana's point with Osterine is a really great SARM for females. And I've used it with good success for females that have, I mean, I don't know a lot about this, but one of my clients who has PCOS, she uses Osterine and nothing else. And she feels really amazing. And she finds that it actually helps with the symptoms of PCOS. So I don't know a lot about that, but I think it is like really interesting that there's this SARM that can potentially help with something that otherwise I don't know if there's like a cure for or like any other thing you can take for it. So
that's unbelievable. Let's cool. allocate this Salta show. We need to do that, Robin. So we're gonna you guys will have a SARMs video for you in the near future. All right. Well, I guess we lost Dana, but we'll have him next week or something.
Yep.
So we'll thank him. We'll thank him via Instagram, right, Rob? Or something.
Absolutely.
Thanks for the day, Robin, and have a good. We're gonna get some eats in.
Yep.
So Canadian Beef Podcast, Beef 20 product codes for Helix Online and Gorilla Wear.
All right. We'll see you guys next time. Thank you so much for listening.
Subscribe.